It's a new season of action for Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup. It is the second on-track action of the day, pre-qualifying. 60 minutes coming up, and were there to be any weather-related dramas, for example, in the qualifying session, this will be where the grid comes from. But in effect, it is free practice too. But what it will give us is a busy track and an indication of who's hot around here, because earlier on in the day, a twice interrupted free practice period was topped by Jules Gounod's Boots and VDS Mercedes, ahead of Ben Green's Emile Frey Racing Ferrari and Thierry Vermeulen's sister Ferrari. But on this great British circuit, it is going to be a fascinating pre-qualifying session. David Addison and John Watson are trackside. The lap is up, John, but this is a proper old school circuit, and you've got to be good around here.
You've got to be very good, because the nature of this racetrack, it is up and down, adverse cambers. The track is relatively narrow. It's not narrow in the literal sense. What makes it feel narrow is that all the bits off the track are make you feel like it is very compressed. So, as we saw this morning, a number of drivers made minor errors, of which there could have been serious consequences, of which going off, catching the grass, and the grass is still very wet from the rain that fell here on Friday and even earlier this week. There we go, happy families.
Well, the man in the white top is Tom Fleming, who was one of those drivers that did go off the road earlier on. Alessia Dono with him. They're sharing number 71 Ferrari. And they got away very lightly. It was just a sort of kiss of the tyre barrier. And dislodging the recticel barriers was the bigger problem, rather than a damaged car.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of Westfield Bend, Tom Fleming got a little bit wide on the exit. And once he got those two wheels on the left-hand side of the car onto the grass, it was inevitable. The car was never going to get back onto the racetrack without a big drama, and the drama was certainly high. But fortunately, the damage was virtually negligible, and Tom was able to sort of dust it off. He said, well, I thought I would do a bit of grass cutting around the Brands Hatch circuit, which he did do, but he got a result, and that result was not getting any serious damage to his Ferrari.
Indeed so. Now, let us head to the pit lane. Antonio Rankin is down there. Konsta Lapalainen for number 14 Ferrari is standing by. Let's hear from him with Antonio.
Konsta, Ben put in a fantastic lap. It was really close in free practice. Are you going to be able to replicate that this afternoon?
Yeah, we hope so to do. I think the car felt good out of the first few laps, and then in the end Ben did a good lap time. So I think for quali and for this afternoon it's going to be nice.
It's going to be a bit warmer on the track this afternoon. Will that change the conditions for your car?
For sure a bit, but I think the track is getting better and better when people drive it, so we see where the track goes.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Konsta Lapalainen there, who will take number 14 to the circuit at some point during the course of this session. Just one thing to factor in, the tyre regulation for the championship. 4 sets of tyres for the weekend. How the teams elect to use those, bearing in mind they'd want to keep fresh sets for qualifying and for the races, is entirely down to them. But 4 sets with free practice, pre-qualifying, quali 1, quali 2 and 2 1-hour races. They've got to be quite clever about what they do with the rubber.
You have to manage your tyre allocation very, very carefully indeed, because, for example, and luckily we don't see an awful lot of it in GT racing, but you lock up a tyre or have a major spin, you can flat spot one or any 4 of those tyres, which would effectively mean that that set of tyres or one of those 4 tyres could be relegated to the bin. And that's where, if you do so, you're out of your 4 sets of you lose 25% of your allocation. So it is important to ensure that none of those situations happen. I mean, they do happen by mistake, but certainly under braking, it's easy at times to lock a brake up, and when it locks up, it doesn't release maybe as quickly as it should do, and that just is where the flat spot comes from.
We understand that number 57 Mercedes, which is the car of Reese Barr, new to the championship, and Magnus Gustafsson, as you look at Ezequiel Perez Compang, is going to be a bit late being pushed onto the pit apron because it's got a door repair that is ongoing. Not quite sure where the damage was sustained in the free practice period, but a door repair issue is what is just going to detain that car for a minute or two. This session will go live in about 5 minutes' time. And there, the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, Alexander Sims at the wheel of it, making a welcome return to the Sprint Cup and his debut for Mad Panda. But 25 strong is the entry, and as the point was being made at the in the discussion with Konsta Lapalainen, Jules Gounod was only 0.02 of a second quicker than Ben Green. Very, very close indeed. Now, James Jakes makes his championship debut, the former IndyCar racer. Really good to have him on the grid and indeed back racing for a full season.
Very much so. And as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that I see, or James has seen it in and around Oxford with a number of his contemporaries, but having him now back as a competitive driver in a new, not a new team, but a team of the new brand, Aston Martin. So a lot of experience in his part, which no doubt will help accelerate the progress that the Come To You racing team is expecting.
He's done the occasional sports prototype race in recent seasons, but not a full programme, so it's good to have the former British Formula 3 Championship racer on the grid. He shares the Come To You Aston with Mathis Lismont, the former motocrosser. And James, although he knows brands better than Matisse, won't have been here for quite some time, so there's a little bit of filing off of rust to be done as part of the run programme in this session. Qualifying will take place at 4:10 this afternoon, so there's quite a bit of time between now and the end of the session and the start of qualifying for a look at the data. Number 48 Mercedes, the two factory drivers Mauro Engel and Lucas Auer, who share that car. On one side is number 69, Thierry Vermeulen, Giacomo Altuve's Ferrari, and on the other, number 10 of Cesar Gazot and Aurélien Panis, the Boutsen VDS car. Cars, I think, are just being retrieved from the previous session, but the fast lane is now open. The race direction team of Alain Adam and Joël Doval give the instruction that the cars now can, if they wish, make their way down the pit lane. Not many as yet, with the wheels on.
No takers whatsoever.
No.
And I think if you reflect back to the comment you made about 4 sets of tyres for the weekend, in part, maybe that's why, because I would imagine most people in the pit lane will run the tyres they ran in the 1 hour session this morning to save their 2 new sets of tyres, ideally for qualifying, and not even necessarily run both sets in qualifying. They might want to run 1 set for both qualifying sessions and have one then fresh, brand new set of tyres for one of the 2 hour sprint races on Sunday. So it's a matter of balancing and managing that tyre allocation. So what we will see this afternoon will be a racetrack that is in better race condition than it was when we started at 9 o'clock this morning. But to contrast that, the tyre will have done the best part of an hour's running, not necessarily a solid hour, but the best part of an hour session. And what we will see will be a racetrack better rubbered in, but higher track temperature. The track temperature has gone up over 10 degrees from this morning. Ambient temperature has gone up only 5 degrees. Racetrack fundamentally is better, but just, again, it'll be a balance of how much you've got left in that first set of rubber that you ran this morning at 9 o'clock. As we look into the Mauro Engel and Lucas Auer, the 48 Mercedes. Is that Lucas Auer and Mauro Engel?
I think Mauro Engel, looking at the crash helmet. Former endurance champion. This the 10th time that Sprint Cup has been to Brands Hatch. We've got 4 newcomers to the championship this weekend. Rhys Barr, Eliseo O'Donoghue, Tom Fleming, James Jakes, that we've already looked at. And 5 previous Brands Hatch winners on the grid. Matthew Drudy, winner last year. Mauro Engel, Ricardo Fellep, winner last year. Dries van Thor and Charles Wirtz. And in terms of wins, Audi is the best brand to have. 7 victories around here for Audi. And normally, you would say that a race from Brands hadn't been won by lower than 3rd on the grid, except last year, Tresor Attempto turned that on its head. The Ricardo Fellep, Matthew Drudy win was from 7th. So some good pit stops. It can be done, and also some brave racing. Now, I mentioned that the 57 Mercedes had this door problem. Let's try and catch up on what's going on down there. Rhys Barr, Magnus Gustafsson, the 2 drivers of that car, and Antonio is down there.
Magnus, we've heard some works going on with the car. What's actually wrong with it?
Just the door handle broke, so it will be replaced, and the car will be ready in approximately 2 minutes, and some small set of changes as well. But otherwise than that, everything is going off the plan. Yeah.
You dropped quite low in free practice. What was the reason for that?
What did you say? I can't.
You dropped quite low in free practice. Was there a reason for that?
Not really, just trying different results and different setups. Yeah, we'll see now. Now everyone is under the same conditions, so let's see how we end up now.
Absolutely, and of course, a lot of drivers have said that this is quite a challenging track. How are you approaching it?
Yeah, it's a challenging track. It's my first time in Brands. So definitely it's challenging, and the schedule is really, really tight. So yeah, try to prepare as much as possible, learn from the pro car that we have, and yeah, let's see how we can get on.
I'm glad it was just a quick fix. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So Magnus Gustafsson and Reece Barr, newcomer to the championship, or those you've just heard, Magnus Gustafsson, newcomer to the circuit, sharing that Winward Racing entry that runs in the Silver Cup. Magnus Gustafsson, former single-seater racer before he came through touring cars and Lamborghini into the Endurance Series last year with Mad Panda. So changing teams for this year, but still in the same car, or same type of car.
So the initial group of cars on their out laps making their way through Westfield, and then the dip down into Dingledale, then up the hill. It used to be called Dingledale Corner, but renamed after great British motorcycling hero Barry Sheen, and then into Stirling. This is that corner naturally named after Stirling to become Sir Stirling Moss, and Sir Stirling Moss is being honoured with a Thanksgiving service next Wednesday in Westminster Abbey, which I think is an amazing accolade to what Stirling did over his life and career as sort of the man who still people would, if you asked to name a famous British Formula One race driver, a lot of people would still say Stirling Moss.
True enough, true enough. Right, we're in business then. Green flag has flown. We've got a lot of cars, but not every car, out on track. And again, you'll see, in some cases, a driver doing work in this session that they didn't do in free practice. The free practice period works that the first half is for silver and bronze drivers only. So, as an example, 46 BMW put Valentino Rossi out for the first half an hour before Maxime Martin was due to do the second part of the session. Valentino went off the road, caused a red flag, and the car never got back out again. So Maxime Martin has lost a potential half an hour of running. You can anticipate maybe that he will do quite a bit in this session, but it is Valentino that has taken the car out, but it might just be to sort of get his eye back in after that off, and once he's confident, right, good, we'll swap over and put Maxime in the car.
Yeah, I think the other factor that people or the team might be thinking about by putting Rossi into the car to start this session is that he was the driver who was in the car last at the point when it went off, and it's to get a back-to-back. Is the car as it was prior to that minor incident, or is there another issue which we need to resolve? Put Maxime Martin, who's never had that opportunity, then maybe the team might get slightly misled. So I think there was a very strong reason behind Valentino would be starting this pre-qualifying session.
You're riding with Patrick Niederhauser in the Porsche, and he's turning his way through Paddock Hill Bend. Let's stay with him, heading up to Druids here, John.
Yes, up the hill, on the brakes, down a couple of 3 gears, and just picking up the throttle, gradually squeezing it open as you come through Druids, then dropping down the hill, then into the Graham Hill Bend, watch on the outside of the corner, and nothing of any note as the exit is completed. Then the short run down to Surtees as we cut back to the Giacomo Altway in the Ferrari he shares with Thierry Moulin. This was a very, very strong runner this morning, and again illustrating 0.3 of a second quicker than anybody else, personal best, and that sliding. We saw this car with Moulin sliding it right over the curb and dropping a wheel into the dirt on the outside of the corner. Altway's time has now been first sector superseded by Charlie Eastwood, and also in a Ferrari.
Which we know in years past, Ferraris 488s or 296s have always been really quick around here. Right, so as Charles Weerts has done the target time of 1:23.9, that is number 51, Charlie Eastwood, who's now done, as John was saying, an absolute best within the first sector. Alex Arca's Audi goes second, Ben Green's Ferrari up to third. Charlie Eastwood, who shares the Racing Team Turkey AF Corsa car with Turkish driver Salih Yoluk. They've been a pretty successful partnership between the pair over the last couple of 3 seasons, and Charlie Eastwood has got to try and do something better than a 23.8 to go top. The best that we had in free practice was a 1:22.9, so you need to be in the 22s, really. And up towards the line comes Charlie Eastwood, and he will stop the clock at a 23.9, third fastest. That is Weerts, Rossi, Eastwood is the order.
Giacomo Altway in the Emile Frey Racing Ferrari. There it is. That car currently in 8th place, but fastest sector time in Sector 1. Again, 1/4 of a second up on anybody. And it looks as if Ferraris are beginning to get their act together. We've got 4 Ferraris in the top 8. And Giacomo Altway could be the one that puts that Ferrari ahead of Charlie Eastwood, 3rd quickest overall. And Benjamin Gotha in the McLaren has got quickest 1:23.6.
So we're getting towards this morning's times. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. as the track gets busier. Giacomo Altway up to third fastest then with a 1:23.910. So it is McLaren Aston Martin as Mathieu Drudy goes second. BMW third, Charles Weerts. Ferrari fourth, Altway. BMW fifth, Rossi. Ferrari sixth, Eastwood. Audi seventh, Alka. Ferrari eighth, ninth, Ben Green, Sean Hudspeth. Simon Gachet 10th for Audi.
So looking at the McLaren and Aston Martin to be, that's a pretty impressive run from both Benjamin Goethe and Matteo Drudy. And for the first time that so far this weekend, we have seen an Aston Martin actually performing at the level we had anticipated, really from the beginning of this year. As we go back to Benjamin Goethe, who still retains that position as being quickest overall, but a 1:23.6, was that 6-7 tenths away from what we saw quickest time this morning in differing temperatures.
True.
At a racetrack that was maybe in the course of being cleaned up. Oh, Goethe runs it wide again.
Does indeed. We have yet to have the Engel, Auer or Goetz-Gunon Mercedes out on track. Pretty much everybody else is there. Number 18, Lamborghini Marcus Pavard, that car struggling for balance and pace in the morning session. We'll see what steps forward can be made as Benjamin Goethe tries to consolidate the top time and goes through to do a 1:23.518, and he does extend the margin a little bit over now. Alessio O'Donnell's Ferrari.
Yeah, that's grabbers. I just keep an eye on that second sector, quickest of anybody. So it's Ferrari second behind this car. Benjamin Goethe, that's a replay of the previous lap, running it really wide. And you can see people are just digging a trench on the outside over the curb, and that's not going to get any less than deep.
This is bad news. This is the Mad Panda Mercedes.
Smoke coming out of it.
Absolutely, and that's Alexander Sims at the wheel of it, and that does not look good at all. Crawls in. Oh, now grass comes from underneath it. Has he been off the road and it's overheated? You saw a little bit of grass drop from the bottom of the car there.
I mean, I don't know whether it's bodywork rubbing or whether that's something, a fluid of some description or other.
He's been off, hasn't he?
Yeah,
because
the front of the car. Yes,
yeah.
The whole front of it's been over the grass somewhere.
Yeah. Alexander Sims has had an off. So, in he comes. The Panda will be mad after that.
Well, I mean,
I never eat leaves.
Well, he's been well and truly off. I mean, the front of the car has acted like the ultimate lawnmower.
Yeah.
And you can see the amount of grass that's got into air intakes, brake cooling ducts, and anything else that cools the car.
So that's where the smoke was coming from, because the car was overheating, because effectively it couldn't breathe, is what we're saying.
In part, it could have been that, or it could have been just something in the course of going off the track that's got maybe wedged in that right rear corner. You can see the engineer looking into that corner to see what was causing the blue smoke to emanate from that corner. But there's all, I mean, Alexander Sim, we high regard for. That's totally unexpected.
Yes, unless there was a problem that pitched him off the road, and the fact that the car is about to go into the garage would suggest that he's reported something perhaps broke or felt strange. So he's gone wide at Graham Hill Bend. Is there a punctured tyre there or a suspension issue? And then it won't turn. He goes straight across the grass. You can see it all scooped up at the front.
Yeah, I mean, that was literally come out of Graham Hill Bend, and I mean, the smoke was pouring out that right rear corner. Whether that was maybe due to a puncture, the car didn't look when it was coming in slowly as if it was really hobbling with a flat tyre. Whatever it was, Alexander Sim, I think, was very much a passenger, and he just simply, on the entry into Stirling, he just went straight on, and that's why the car picked up so much grass in the air intakes and around the back of the car.
But as we'd seen, he'd run wide at Graham Hill Bend and either cut a tyre or damage the suspension there. Here is 57 then. It's joined the session a bit late. Reece Barr is the man behind the wheel of it. New to the championship. This was the car that was having the door handle replaced, but Reece Barr goes through and he moves up, in fact, to 19th. That's called raising the bar, isn't it?
Yes, something like that. I will not take that any further. I think we'll leave the bar in the bar.
Alexander Sims was 18th, incidentally, before he had to pit, and Reece Barr is now behind him, 19th. Ooh, wide there. Now turn...
that's out of Druids.
2, Druids, yeah. Turn 1, Paddock Hill Bend, and turn 3 here, Graham Hill Bend. There on the Indy Circuit part of the track, the two on the outside of the road where track limits are being looked at. Go wide there, you're sort of maintaining momentum, so you're gaining an advantage. The other key place that's being monitored is the inside of turn 7, Sheen Curve, where you can almost straight line across the curb. Do that, that's a track limit warning as well.
Yeah, Sheen Curve is slightly more difficult because as you come up out of Dingledale, you can't actually see the apex until you arrive on it, so you have to turn in anticipation. And sometimes that anticipation is a bit more generous than maybe is permitted by track limits.
So you're looking at Reece Barr, and you can see where he is on the racetrack. He's come out of Sheen Curve. He's coming up towards Stirling's now, and he's improved in the first sector. Lucas Auer has been dispatched, incidentally, in the sister Winward car in the Manfilter colours, which means we've just got the Gunnar Gertz Mercedes to go. Let's get Reece Barr across the line because he's lost time in the middle sector of this lap. Giacomo Altway, by the way, is up to third fastest, but the Mercedes, as it growls its way across the timing line, was 20th at the start of the lap. It's 20th at the end of the lap with a 1 minute 25.352. And that means that Reece Barr missed out on improving his lap time. He was 52 thousandths slower than his earlier best.
So is that a case of going back into the pits and having a chat with your team and saying, are there some issues that we want to address, or is it just you driving yourself in, getting accustomed to the circuit, to the car, and whatever else is involved?
Well, there's Magnus Gustafsson getting ready. Winward Racing, Russell Ward's American team. It's been a feature of European, mainland Europe and elsewhere, GT racing, not just confining itself to the States. How's James Jakes getting on? At the moment, he's the slowest, but hopefully he's about to improve. He's new to GT3 cars as well, of course, so he's learning about these all the time. And James goes through. That lap was a 26.737. That means that he's 39 thousandths slower than his earlier best. Looks great, that car, though.
The car looks great on circuit, but just watching coming through paddock and the drop down to the compression, you could sense there's a little bit of, am I going to lose the back end and just move momentarily? And that always will force a driver to get out of the throttle to check that slide. So if it's a confidence issue, if you're not comfortable in the car, you're not happy with what you're getting from the car via your seat, via your legs, by your hands, then making the commitment, and this is a circuit which is about commitment. So I would say right now that the 21 Aston Martin hasn't yet found that sweet spot that would give the drivers in the car the confidence to be able to get on the program.
Lucas Auer has got the confidence, though, because on his first proper flying lap, he's gone third. So it is Goethe Dono who is becoming a real star of the day. Alessio Dono, who's been up near the pointy end in free practice and already in pre-qualifying. He's second, and then our third from Altway, Nicolas Bart and Ben Green. James Jakes down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2. So he's not yet as happy with this car as he needs to be to unlock the potential.
The other thing is, if you haven't been behind the wheel of a race car for a considerable length of time, jumping into this championship, the level and quality of drivers at the front is exceptionally high.
Yeah.
And you've got to work your way, you've got to earn your right, almost earn your stripes. Lucas Auer, by the way, just gone quickest overall in the middle sector. And this could see the number 48 Mercedes actually end up currently third quickest, could end up quickest overall.
Lucas Auer goes through, personal best, absolute best, fastest lap time then, 1 minute 23.357. We're still not quite as good as we were at the end of the free practice period, but equally you could argue the cars are heavier at the moment because we're early into this session and there's more fuel on board.
I love that sort of slow-mo shot we're getting coming into Stirling's, where you really see the vertical movement. You can see the up and down, the car moving under suspension, and that's not a particularly bumpy part of the racetrack. So just the loads that are going into the right front of the car and the right side of the car, just being illustrated by that slow-mo. The dynamics are just, amazing.
Yeah, true enough. There's number 12 then, back into the pit lane. And this is the car that Charles Clark, a British driver from the British GT Championship last year, shares with another GT4 campaigner, but from the European Series, Dante Raponge. Charles Wirtz, in the meantime, is behind the wheel of number 32, and that's the Licky Molly Engschler car just up the road ahead. New to the championship, the Engschler team. Luca Engschler coming here on the back of a DTM win last weekend. Replay of Charles Wirtz making a mistake at paddock, way wide, isn't he? As he scuffles through the gravel there. Oof,
that's a front splitter, I would say, in the car. That's going to be consigned to the biffer bin, because that was a big hit. You know, he carried a lot of speed to get through the gravel trap, but in doing so, where the gravel ended and the grass began, there was a ridge, and that just whacked the front of the nose. Yeah. So again, is he going to? Well, he's going to, I suspect, bring the car in. Other than if he feels it's not, the car is unchanged, might stay out. But again, look at that. I mean, really taken as much of the racetrack as is possible.
That was his dad looking on, by the way, in the pit box. If you were wondering who the white-shirted gentleman was, Yves Wirtz. He's trying to get the gravel out of the bottom of the car, but he might well pit. If anything, though, it looked like he was backing off to let the traffic go more than thinking about pitting. But, yeah, stays out.
Well, I mean, Charles Wirtz must be happy enough that what we thought was maybe damage, more damage than appears to be the case, to the left front splitter on the BMW. He's continuing on, so let's see what this lap produces.
Up to Druids goes Scholwitz, and we understand that Mad Panda's problem was to do with the rear axle. Quite what triggered it, they're getting to the bottom of, but a rear axle problem struck the Mad Panda Mercedes, so they're going to try and work on that and hopefully get the car out before the end of the session, but 44 minutes remain.
Yeah, I think say an axle is a sort of a catch-all kind of phrase. It's an independent rear suspension on the Mercedes. So whether it's the drive shaft or whether it's the suspension component or whatever it is anyway, the team are working on it and hopefully get the car back out before we've got 43 minutes and a few seconds remaining. Charles Verts is still pushing, but he's 0.6 of a second down in Sector 1. And I suspect that he's not going to stay out very much longer. He'll probably complete this lap and then come in at the end of the next lap to establish, was there damage done to the car? Or where are we? Or why did I run wide coming through Paddock Bend?
Yeah, it's interesting that he did stay out because he will have not done the tyres much good, coated in gravel, unless he stayed out to try to clean them. But he's going to persevere to the end of this lap at least, and then one more. Through he goes, down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2. Now, having said that he is down in the sectors, this isn't about setting a grid position necessarily. It may be that WRT want a race run, let's say a 15-lap stint out of him, so they can have a look at data, and that's more useful. So even though he's had that off, let's keep him out there.
Yeah, but that last lap, which is the first flying lap he did after he'd been off, it was about a second and a bit slower. True. So there is a loss of time, and where that loss of time lies, whether that's within Charles Bates himself or whether it's something that is, oh wow, look at that, McLaren taking an awful lot of the curb on the inside of Westfield. Up the hill into Sheen. What's he doing here, Sheen? Again, everybody's running. There's a marker there to preclude drivers from track limit abuses. I wonder how long that marker is going to survive.
I agree with you, yes. So you're riding with McLaren factory driver Tom Gamble, whose brother George we've seen in the British Touring Car Championship, now Carrera Cup, and the third of the brothers. Harry started racing in Genesas this season as well. Tom Gamble goes through in the Garage 59 run car. That lap was a 24.2, so a little bit slower than Benjamin Goethe was doing at the very start of the session. But again, I think you've kind of had a flurry of quick times at the start, and now people are getting into a race round simulation.
And maybe that's what the number 9 Mercedes is doing, because Jules Gounon behind the wheel is in 10th position. So their lap time 1:23.9 is slower than they did this morning. But on the current lap, Jules Gounon has gone fastest overall in Sector 1. So that was maybe an exploratory lap, just get a re-acquisition with the circuit. And now pedal to the metal and get on with it. And wait to see what he gets through as he comes through Hawthorns. A short sprint down into Westfield. Again, you see that sort of vertical movement of the cars. It hops, skips and jumps over the bumps in Westfield.
That Sheen curve, and he's absolutely fine, not hitting the bollard, not cutting the corner, which would incur the wrath of race control. But that is a big old slide out of Sterling. Jules catches it, drives off the other side, but this shows the commitment on this lap.
I was going to say it looked a very conservative lap, but it's anything conservative coming through Sterling's bend. And he didn't lift, which is the key. He didn't lift.
Over the line goes Jules Gounon, and we wait for the lap to be confirmed. It is 4th fastest, 1:23.603. His earlier lap being taken away from him for track limits.
So let's look at Gounon's exit out of Sterling's in slow-mo. The back begins to slide. The tyre, you can see the oscillation in the tyre. And if we could see the throttle trace from the number 9 Mercedes, I guarantee you it never varied.
Well, that lap stayed. Previous one didn't, but Jules has retained that. We're looking at Nicholas Bart now. And this car is 5th fastest, number 7 Aston Martin, the one that he shares with Matteo Druni, the reigning Sprint Cup champion, or one of the two, with Riccardo Feller. This is Nicholas Bart's father, who owns the team, Jean-Michel Bart. And to come to you in touring cars as well as in GT, synonymous with Audis for many, many seasons, but electing to go to Aston Martin this year. And a really big programme of expansion as well, running in endurance and sprint with many cars. And it's been a credit to come to you to get everything gelling together so quickly.
Yeah, it's a big commitment for cars in endurance, and you know, it's such a change. Everything about Aston Martin compared to the Audi that the team have been running for previous seasons. So they've got to learn, and you know, you're learning on the hoof effectively, albeit there was testing opportunities, but it's a steep learning curve.
So this is Tom Fleming. This is the driver that caused one of the 2 red flags in the first session, the other being Valentino Rossi. Tom had a spin at, well, it started at Westfield and it finished at Sheen Curve. It was quite a moment on the wet grass, but he's looking good thus far. Winner of the Ferrari Mondiale, the Ferrari World Finals last year, and he comes up towards the timing line now. Mauro Engel and Lucas Auer's car is the fastest on a 1:23.3. Tom Fleming's lap is a 24.7. But as I say, not everybody at the moment chasing a lap time.
In fact, we're not seeing a huge number of improvements. The last improvement we've had was a lap or so ago from Gilles Magnus in the 25 Audi, and he's up into 15th position. But most of the timing and scoring now, we're seeing no green sectors, certainly no purple sectors. It's only Magnus has got a green sector as we're current, with 38 minutes remaining.
All 25 are on track, or have been on track, I should say. They're all ventured into the session. And this is far more productive running, in a sense, for the teams than that twice interrupted session earlier on, because with it being free practice, of course, when there was a red, it didn't stop the clock. They lost the time. The Brands Grand Prix circuit just looks right for these cars, or depending on which way you can at it, these cars just look right around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, don't they? Especially on a dry day. It's actually got a bit cloudier in the last 10 or 15 minutes than it was earlier on. At the start of the day, it was all nice and bright and sunny. Now it's a bit more overcast. There are some blue patches in the sky, but there's also quite a lot of grey cloud over the circuit as well. So that, for the moment, just cools down the temperature, might make the cars that touch quicker. Let's see. Tom Fleming up towards Clark Curve now.
I mean, I'm just watching Fleming coming through the sequence of corners 5, 6, 7, 8, and then finally turn 9. How he's placing the car and running out to the edge, but not overdoing it. So what's going on here with this Ferrari? Look at the bodywork. I mean, what a complex structure that is. But you know, how well engineered, because if you do damage the nose, that whole unit comes off as one, and you have a spare, hopefully you may have more than one set of spares, that you then just reattach, and as long as the mountings or the locating dowels for that bit of bodywork are unaffected, I mean, that's where the engineering is going in GT3 cars. I mean, it is...
It's like Lego, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. It is absolutely phenomenal.
That's the Vermeulen Altway car, which is 8th fastest. I'm getting really concerned about the Rutronic Porsche, because it didn't do much this morning. And Patrick Niederhauser is only 22nd of the 25 in it thus far. There is 46 BMW Maxime Martin now behind the wheel. So Valentino Rossi took it out early on, but Maxime Martin is behind the wheel of it. If you have a look on the timing tower, anybody whose car number is in white is in pro. Anybody with a blue background is silver, and the yellow is gold. And then to the right of that, you'll see there are little orange markings, or green, next to some of the numbers. If it's an orange one, it means their sector, 1, 2 or 3, was slower than had been. Look further down, you'll see 1 or 2 greens. That means that those sectors have been quicker than the car had done hitherto. And if you see a purple one, get excited, because that's better than anybody has done in that sector in the entire session.
Yeah, but unfortunately right now, people or teams are into doing maybe a duration run, you know, a simulation of what it may be like during the mid part of a 1-hour sprint race, as the 46 makes its way down the pit lane. Maxime Martin behind the wheel. So the 46 is currently 9th quickest, and that was a time I think established by Valentino Rossi.
Are Rutronic keeping dry their powder, or is this Porsche genuinely not at the races at the moment?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was certainly at the races at Paul Ricard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't believe the car is underperforming. Look, a team will run to a particular race program, strategy, whichever. When it comes down to it in qualifying, I would expect to see that car somewhere higher than its present 22nd overall.
Yeah. But Paul Ricard, Brands Hatch, different circuits, different balance of performance, and one gets the feeling that the Porsche, at least at the moment, has some time to unlock. But as you rightly say, it may well be that they will dig even deeper when we get to qualifying this afternoon. 2 10-minute sessions, a tweak to the regulations this year. It's just 10 minutes to determine the grid. Here is Niederhauser up to the line, and you're riding with him as well in the inset box.
I think that I love that picture within a picture, and we got a glimpse of that from Niederhauser's onboard camera as he comes up and into Paddock Bend. So then up the hill following the Aston Martin. So we've got only 1, 2, 3. Well, there are 3 cars in the pit lane and 2 about to exit the pit lane. So the track is a pretty busy racetrack.
Along Cooper Straight then comes Patrick Niederhauser. His last lap was a 25.8, 4 tenths down on what he was doing earlier on. But actually at the moment, finding improved lap times or sector times, they're few and far between. There are 1 or 2. I think we've just had one, in fact, from Hugo Cook, British GT racer, the man from Northwich near Alton Park. He's up to 19th in number 26 Audi, the car that or the type of car that he races at the British Championship, coming to Fanatec GT this weekend. Here he is up towards the line. So we saw him in endurance at Paul Ricard, but making a debut in Sprint Cup. Hugo Cook up at the right hand of Druids, turns through the corner now. The Audi part of the Santalock stable.
It's sort of a bit of a, everything feels slightly becalmed.
Yeah, you're right.
There's nothing going on track that's lighting up the timing and scoring, but teams are going to do a certain amount of preparation for the sprint, 2 1-hour sprint events tomorrow afternoon. Was that a wiper being? I don't know. Maybe it just got flicked. Maybe I had an aspiration, didn't quite see what it was. I mean, the cloud base is beginning to creep over the racetrack. Hopefully, it's not going to be an issue, and it'll just pass through.
We're heading towards the halfway mark of this 1 hour of pre-qualifying as Hugo Cook accelerates down towards Clearways, then into Clark Curve. He's done a green, he's done a personal best in that middle sector. So Hugo Cook looking to find 600ths really to move up a place in the order. And as he goes over the line, he stays 19th.
He found almost a second in that middle sector, but didn't improve position.
Let's, in the meantime, as the session continues, head to the pit lane. Giacomo Altway, we saw his car being disassembled. He might be able to explain what it's all about to Antonia.
Giacomo, could you tell me a little bit about why the whole front of your car is off?
Yeah, I had the first session out there, and we are not really in the window with the setup, so we did some few changes, and now my teammate is going to try them, and let's see if we are going to improve or not.
Do you think that means you've got some potential to unlock?
For sure, we have also, some margin. We don't get to test in this track, so for sure every small change that you do is changing also on track, so we will do our best, and then we'll see in quali.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope there's a bit more pace in that car. Thank you.
Fingers crossed from Giacomo Altway, who we know is quick, made his name really a good few seasons ago now in Lamborghinis, both in Super Trofeo and then in the International GT Open. He was European champion in Lamborghinis. He was the World Final winner, Italian GT champion twice over as well, and has remained loyal to Lamborghini. That's Lorenzo Ferrari in '88. This is the Audi that he shares with Christopher Haase that was in Christopher's hands good early on in free practice. It finished the session 9th this morning, and Lorenzo Ferrari is, as you can see, the man behind the wheel as he presses on, coming out of Graham Hill Bend now. The winner of the Italian GT Championship in 2021 and of the GTE class in ELMS 2022. So Lorenzo Ferrari, another accomplished young gun.
Yes, currently paced the Audi, you can see 19th quickest overall. So, in fact, the quickest Audi is only in 11th place. That's Riccardo Feller. So maybe Audi have got a little bit of work they need to think about, or they're just focusing on what can they get, what's the best result, and of course they're running on a set of tires they ran on earlier in the morning. So the ultimate pace is not presently there, but it's interesting that the quickest of the Audis, which is the Riccardo Feller car, I would have assumed would have been slightly further up. It's in 11th place. I thought it would be somewhere in the top 10. Alan Arca and Feller is a pretty formidable driver lineup.
It is Mercedes McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, BMW, Ferrari, BMW, Ferrari, the order in the top 10. Porsche, 23rd. This is the replay number 9. Maxi Goetz at the wheel of it, going wide, coming out of Sheen Curve and across the gravel and the grass. And on and on and on and on he goes, launches himself through the gravel, tries to edge the car back towards the tarmac. Maxi Goetz doing effectively what Valentino Rossi did in the first session, but not having the outcome of going off the road at Stirling's, being able to get off the power and slow the car down, so he did rejoin, but that wastes that lap from Goetz. The Mad Panda Mercedes is back out. That's been a really good job. I think they've probably lost about 14-15 minutes, but Herculean effort to get that car back on track, and Alexander Sims still behind the wheel of it, I think I'm right in saying. Yes, he is.
I mean, what was the issue? We were given an indication as to what they thought it was, and they were working on it. But whatever was the problem, if they've got it rectified, they've done a good job. And let's see what Alexander Sims can do, because he needs track time in this car here at Brands Hatch. But a driver who is more than capable of giving a performance that would be impressive for the Mad Panda operation.
And Patron, Ezequiel Perez Compact, you just saw putting his crash helmet on. The Mad Panda livery has become even more angry, more mad this year. As you can see, there it is, number 90 Alexander Sims, new to the car, new to the team, and the team stepping up to the Pro Cup for the first time. Down towards Clearways he comes then. And although Alexander is learning about the Mercedes, equally he's probably putting in the benchmark setup. If the setup that he can make works for both of them, even better news. Down towards Paddock he goes, and this should be a proper flying lap now that he's got the confidence in not just the car but the repair.
Well, with the pedigree Alexander Sims has, there's no question about him as a race driver's ability. It'll be then, what can the team do to give him the equipment to enable him to perform at the level I certainly know he's capable of, and the team would expect from a driver of his status.
Further up the road, you'll see the Porsche. There is but the one, and it is Sven Müller behind the wheel of it, but that car is still 23rd of the 25. It is really struggling, that Porsche. Now, unless they're trying to play the system, as it were, and get a BOP change for qualifying, right now you've got to say, if that's the true pace of the car, they're struggling.
I think that's a big surprise. I mean, I don't think that is the natural pace of the car. Maybe the team are focusing on other aspects, and maybe they're looking for the brake, you know, a BOP gain. Who knows what they're up to? I don't think they're going to turn around and tell us in accurate terms what they are actually up to. And if the car is uncompetitive, they're not going to turn around and tell us that either.
No, true enough. We'll find out when qualifying's second and checkered flag falls, won't we? Alexander Sims not improving in the sectors as yet. But again, it could be that they're not chasing a time. They just want to make sure that car is absolutely 100%, that it's got the right setup, and it'll be pitting anyway soon, so that Ezequiel Perez Compact, there he is, can get on board. He remains tight-lipped as to the reasoning behind the Mad Panda tag for the team. But they've been a well-drilled operation. It's going to be interesting to see how that team goes now that it steps up to Pro. That's James Kell, the British driver for the GSM team with the Lamborghini. That was a car that was struggling for top-line speed and also for balance in the morning session. But James Kell is a very handy GT driver, we know that. So let's see how that car progresses over the course of the weekend.
Conservative on the exit out of Stirling. Is probably one of the few drivers that doesn't run the curb. So again, whether that's just down to a lack of maybe relationship between the car and the driver, let's wait and see whether we can see any. Well, there's no improvement on that last lap, so it remains currently 24th quickest.
Goes out of Paddock, heads up the hill, but okay, James Kell did not improve, as John was implying, but equally nobody is improving at the moment. We have got 25 minutes of the session remaining, and people now looking as though they're doing race runs. This is Mauro Engel then in number 48 Mercedes. This is the car that's fastest by a 10th. Number 9 Mercedes, that was top of the times in free practice, only 4th. And we've not seen that much of Ben Green in number 14. Top speed at Sheen Curve on our race vision powered by AWS graphic goes the way of Ricardo Feller's Audi, matched by Consta Lepalainen and Thierry Vermeulen's Ferraris and Lorenzo Ferrari's Audi, all at 130 kilometres an hour.
feels a lot quicker when you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Nevertheless, you're talking about roughly 80 miles an hour, just under.
Audi and Ferrari then looking at that top speed. Through has gone Mauro Engel, who would dearly love to be Sprint Cup champion. He, of course, lost it on a tie break on the wins when Andrea Caldarelli a few years ago and Marco Mappelli. At the entry to Druids, again, Lorenzo Ferrari is quick, 136 kilometers an hour on the entry to the hairpin.
I don't know where they would take that speed measurement from, because it's a big braking area into Druids. It's down to second gear, so it has to be a little bit before, but whether that's in the braking zone or just prior to the braking zone. So anyway, it's an interesting statistic, gives us an insight, and it's comparative to your peers and competitors.
Still the track limit warnings and the lap cancellations come, so Eliseo O'Donnell has had a lap taken off him, number 71, and I mentioned him specifically because he's in the top 3, way quicker than anybody else in the Silver Cup at the moment. Number 71 Ferrari is the very distinctive man filter colours that Raffaele Marciello used to win in Macau last year, for example, come now down through Clark Curve. Mauro Engel at the wheel of the car. Had that season-long battle with Marco Asma in British Formula 3. He's raced in pretty much every GT championship going, in the DTM and in the Australian supercars. Mattia Drudi, half of that championship winning combination with Riccardo Fella last year, has had a couple of laps and then come in, given the car back to Nicholas Bart.
I suppose one of the qualities a racing driver needs is consistency. And looking at that information chart we get here, timing and scoring, one car that has shown great consistency is the Audi 111, which is Simon Gachet and Lucas Legere, because this lost laps for track limit abuse, I think, on 6 or more occasions in this session already.
And then back-to-back laps almost as well in a number of occasions. Now look, an improved sector, whoopee for Sven Müller. Let us hope that this catapults the Porsche up into the mix, because it really is languishing at the moment, and it shouldn't, given that it's a Pro Cup car and two very, very accomplished GT drivers. Sven Müller has made a real name for himself as a Porsche specialist over the years. The car goes through, and the lap time that it does is a 25.477, 66 thousandths shy of its earlier best. So, sad face once again.
Unexplainable to me. I don't know this car's pace as we ride on board. So let's see where we are coming down the hill into Graham Hill Bend. And riding on board, I mean, looking at the car coming through the corner, you really need to get the timing and scoring to give you where that car is in relation to others around it. There's the speeds indicating what we're doing through Surtees, then building up. It'll probably be about 240 kilometers per hour, I'm assuming, just at the point where you're close to entering into Hawthorne Bend. So 230s past to, not even, about 233, 234. And carrying around about 100 miles an hour, 160 kilometers an hour through Hawthorne Bend, then a break into Westfield Bend, down the dip, and this is the uphill on-sided entry into Sheen Curve, turn it in, and the marker cone, I think, is just about still there. And the short run to under Stirling's, which is the slower of these two corners, but still 130 plus kilometers an hour, then accelerate hard all the way down. It's a slightly declining into, I love this corner, what a fantastic corner. Probably my favorite corner, and then it used to be Clearways, it's Clark Curve, then Clearways, and then comes across start finish line, comes across the line at 225 kilometers per hour. What are we doing through Paddock? We're around 140 kilometers per hour. So was that an improvement in position? No. Was it an improvement in time? No. So 125.56 in that last lap, but closer. Now there's the Ferrari that we're constant Costa Lapalanden. And is that yet another change, or is that the same change that we saw about 10 minutes ago still being worked on? So a load of work going on around the front suspension, and love to get the camera in there really to see what they're doing. Is that, I mean, to me it looks like it's an adjustment on the shock absorber, but it's difficult to see what it is. Oh, there we go. Open the aperture a bit. Let's see, get a bit more light getting in, see if we can see what it is. Anyway, whatever it is, it's pretty full on. Pretty full on.
Trouble is that rapidly running out of session, aren't they? Because there are less than 20 minutes to go, and the Ferrari still sits there.
So the only variant in colour on the timing and scoring is that I think it's Dries van Thor has set the quickest speed, and it was 223 kilometres in sector 3, so that must be coming across start-finish line. Everything else is yellow. We've got a couple of greens. Sven Muller has actually improved up to 20th now, so he has made green sector 1, 2 and 3, so they've got something working. Lucas Legeret in the 111 Audi, the car that's suffered a lot of penalties for track limit abuses, up to 16th.
Dries van Thor, the bravest out on track, with 246 kilometres an hour being his top speed, ahead of Benjamin Goethe, Sam de Haan, Maxime Martin and Gilles Magnus. So a real shuffle of names in that order in terms of the actual top speed compared to the order of the lap time classification. Cesar Gazo up towards the end of the lap here. And will go through and breaks the beam now. Very wide at paddock, but he gets away with it, doesn't get as far as the gravel, does he?
We've got 18 minutes remaining, and the tyre life, these tyres are designed to do a certain mileage, and well, the tyre, when it's new, has got a peak performance, then that performance drops away, and then you get into a very level performance period until eventually you just run out of rubber.
This is Max Hofer, who has raced here before. Teammate Luca Engschler hasn't. This is the Engschler run car, although the team itself now with this One Group Engineering tie-up with Ron Hartveldt's very experienced squad. Ron himself has worked in Formula One, Super touring cars, you name it, he's done it, and bringing the engineering expertise to this team. It's a car that Engschler and One Group have had for a number of years. Won the DTM race a week ago, or one of the 2 DTM races a week ago. And they're new to the championship, and they want to come here and learn. They've got a program. They're not chasing a result this weekend. They just want to, if you like, be taken seriously and do a good job and be competitive and not drop the ball on any of the processes and if you like, earn their spurs on this grid.
Well, you used a word to me earlier in the day that what they're looking for is a degree of respect, and I thought that the approach that they've adopted is a very sensible approach. They're not trying to set the world on fire. They're not going to go out and beat everybody at their first outing. So I think that was a very, intelligent, sensible way to address your program. That was a Ferrari dive through into Westfield and got ahead of the 21. The Aston Martin we're riding on board with currently. That car is sadly the slowest of all.
So still James Jakes behind the wheel as well. The Porsche, by the way, briefly went 20th and pitted, and he's now back down to 21st. But there's clearly trouble at mill for the Porsche squad. And James Jakes, okay, he's doing the laps, he's getting familiar with the car, but the times aren't improving. Valentino Rossi, I think, is going to get back in before the end of the session.
Always the PR man.
Yeah.
Knows when a camera's on him and just says hello to the fans. Oh.
Charles Clark and Dante Raponge swap over. And just under 16 minutes of the session to go. Now, as we get towards the last 10 minutes, I wonder, are we then going to start to see people going for a proper lap time, getting themselves dialed in for qualifying, seeing what the car can do in qualifying mode? Let's find out. Charles Clark getting set to go.
It would be an interesting thing to do, but bear in mind that qualifying is going to be later this afternoon, so ambient temperatures, track temperatures are probably not going to be a million miles away, but would you want to use the second or third set of new tyres just to get that idea, or you roll the dice and say, we're going to run with what we've got, we're going to finish all our homework, do our housekeeping, and then when it comes to qualifying, we know that we've got a good car. That new set of tyres is going to give us the performance.
Well, the car drops down, as you see from the label on the back. It runs in the Silver Cup. There Charging over the line is Lucas Leggeret in the Audi that is 16th fastest. Comes out of the CSA Racing stable, Arthur Rougier's team. Arthur himself, we've seen as a driver in the championship, and now operating this Audi squad. Lucas Leggeret down through Graham Hill Bend, traffic up the road, and 16th for the very tall French driver. So still Mercedes, as it did in free practice, tops pre-qualifying, but it's a different Mercedes, interestingly. And Maxi Götz has done a bit more of the mileage, I would say, in number 9 Mercedes than in the earlier session. Leggeret, another one, not improving in sectors.
Yet again, at timing and scoring, there's no greens showing in any of the sectors, and certainly a purple is an endangered species right now.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, I have seen them, but not for a long, long time. How do we coax one out? Well, we might not before the checker flag. It might be we have an order. So Leggeret with 2 yellows, not improving, comes now down towards clearways. So Mario Engel at the wheel of number 48, currently the top car, and Leggeret bails for the pit lane. Now, are they going to do a driver change, I wonder, and put Simon Gachet into the car so that he could do a few laps before the checkered flag? This is the car that's second. Benjamin Goethe now back at the wheel of 159, the Garage 59 Ran McLaren. Goes out of Westfield. And Benjamin Goethe climbs the hill. Traffic ahead, but he should be able to dispense with the Ferrari by the end of the lap, if not on the run up towards paddock. Assuming he stays out, because it looks like he backs off a bit there at Stirling's. Ideally, he wants the traffic to get away, and then that gives him a clear road. The gap has widened, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the car looked considerably quicker than the Ferrari that he's currently running behind, so the gap's up to about 3 seconds, so he'll probably devour most of that if he can find that pace. And this is the problem at any racetrack, is when you're trying to do something very specific, is that there's always going to be other cars out on the track who are doing their own particular thing, and you know, there's no restriction on who has to concede in these sessions. It's not like a race where you're being overtaken or lapped, where you may have to respect a waved blue flag.
So along Cooper Straight comes Benjamin Goethe. Turns his way now up through the left-hand of Surtees. A little bit crossed up, but he gets away with that. So there the McLaren with just over 11.5 minutes still to run. But that car encouraging around here, isn't it? It looks like it belongs at the front, and it's been there with good lap times, no matter who's been behind the wheel.
Well, I mean, basically all year, whether it's British GT or even back in Paul Ricard, McLaren's performance has been nearer to the front consistently than we've maybe seen in previous seasons. Garage 59 are running this car, and they've got 2 young guys who are going to go out and give it whatever. Goethe behind the wheel right now, currently in 2nd position. Lap time is just another lap. I mean, it doesn't relate to what the car's potential is. It'll probably ultimately be dictated by the state of the rubber that is on the 159 McLaren.
So what else are we learning out of this session? We're learning that the Audis are struggling because the best of those is 11th, and we've certainly learned that Porsche are all at sea, or the Porsche is all at sea. 21st is where the Sven Müller, Patrick Niederhauser car is to be found, and it is back on track. The Astons are there or thereabouts, the best of which is 5th. But with Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari being the top 3, you'd also say that BMW is not quite where it wants to be. About half a second, just under half a second away, is the best of the BMs.
That's probably slightly surprising, particularly with the 32 car with Dries van Thor and Charles Weerts. We did see Weerts run wide coming out of Paddock Bend a few moments ago, but didn't appear to cause any issues, so it's now Dries van Thor behind the wheel. But his best lap, or the car's best lap, was set some time ago, and the car's last lap was 125.1, which would indicate to me that this is really a race run more than an out-and-out, can we improve our lap time run? So Alex Arca up the hill, and this is the lead Audi, currently in 11th place. Gilles Magnus directly behind by about 2 and a bit, 3 tenths of a second. Alex Arca comes out of Graham Hill Bend, then all along the Cooper Straight, again named after the great British race car constructor John Cooper, the Cooper Car Company. For those that are old enough to remember.
There are a few of us. Alex Arca you're riding on board with now, and pretty clear road ahead of him. This is Hawthorne. The road climbs uphill again. There you drop down and you think, well, I've cleared that, and then it starts to raise again and turn through Hawthorns. This is Westfield. Then the road drops down and then up again, coming up towards Dingledale and then on towards Sheen Curve. Use the curve on the inside. It has the effect of unsettling the car a little, but being able to hang on to it is Alex Arca. This is Sterling, slightly back, left-hander, curve on the outside. Runs it a little bit late before he's on the road. He's on the grass, I would have said there, looking at the angle of the car, but survives it. Alex Arca, always an exciting driver to watch.
Yes, I mean, he's young, and with young you get lots of excitement, you get impetuosity and other qualities that ultimately, when you start to round out those values, then you can get a really quick race driver. I think Alex Arca is in process to developing into that guy.
Yeah, I said, as you look at the super slow-mo, that it looked like he was on the grass coming out of Sterling's. Well, he's not arguing with us, is he? Look at that, over the curb, onto the gravel, and instead of trying to jink left and aggravate the car, he just lets it flow, come back on.
And he did the right thing.
Yeah.
If he had tried to pull the car back, aggressively, could have found himself in a problem. But by doing what he did, okay, his exit and then following the exit was compromised. But he did the right thing by keeping the car running as straight as possible until he was able to come back in a very gradual manner. So we're back now on board with Alex Arca. Oh! Well, that was very wide coming out of Hawthorne. That would have been a heart-mouth second for Alex Arca. Don't like to see a car getting that far off the exit of the quickest corner on the circuit.
So you're back on board with Arca. Said it was exciting to watch. Further proof of it on this lap. 7.5 minutes just under remain. He's going to stay out for another lap, but nobody really improving. This is all now about a race run simulation, it seems, and over the line goes Arca to stay 11th fastest then. So we've had a change of driver in the fastest car of the session, number 48. In other words, we've now got Lucas Auer back behind the wheel of it. This is 46 BMW, which the last time we were paying any attention to it was Valentino Rossi standing waiting to take over, and he remains waiting because Maxime Martin is doing his laps now that he missed out on really in the free practice period earlier on in the day. 9th quickest.
So that car's time, 1:23.9. Last lap, my goodness, well off the pace, 1:27.2. So this is clearly a run which is not about ultimate pace, it's about getting consistency and information for the team.
So far so good in that respect. And of course, they had a good run here last year. It was at Misano that they had the win, but they've been on the podium here. So Maxime Martin comes up out of Surtees onto the Grand Prix part of the circuit. 6 minutes tick down before we get to the end of the session with a handful of cars in the pit lane, but pretty much everybody wanting, it seems, to be on track for the final few minutes now. Yep.
It was here a year ago that Valentino Rossi, I said in the commentary, I felt came of age as a racing driver. I mean, his career in motorcycles, well, that's legend. But it seemed he can, and as a consequence, when he did go to Misano, and he had that very, very important and a most emotional day for Valentino. So he has progressed, and he's doing it amongst peers who are some of the best in the business. So it is no easy task making an adaptation from the sport he made his career in to racing four wheels.
So Maxime Martin up towards the line. Got the Boots and VDS Mercedes just up the road ahead. Having left the pits is Marcus Pavarud in the GSM Lamborghini. In the pits, Tom Fleming's Ferrari, Nicolas Bart's Aston, Cesar Garzo's Mercedes, and Christopher Haas's Audi, and now add to that Lucas Auer's Mercedes AMG that comes in, as you can see, the man filter coloured car. Mauro Engel is set to take it over. Lucas Auer, Gerhard Berger's nephew, stops. Mauro Engel helps with the driver change. This is Ezequiel Perez Companc at the wheel of the Mad Panda Mercedes now. which has dropped to the bottom of the Pro Cup entry. What have we got left? Just under 5 minutes.
Didn't look that Perez Compact was able to get the car in as tight to Druids as maybe you'd think, but again, there could be a variety of reasons for it, and so Perez Compact continues on his way, currently 23rd. I think the graphic we have got on screen actually is inaccurate. It is still Alexander Sims behind the wheel.
Okay.
So we'll see if any further improvement can come. There we are, confirmation that it is Alex Sims behind the wheel.
So into the last 4 minutes pretty much now of this session, and the Mercedes on this lap is ticking off the sectors. Sven Muller has just improved in the Porsche in the middle of the lap, so there's a hint of optimism for the 911. And at the end of the lap time is slower, but it did do 2 greens within the lap, so let's hope that can be carried on, not necessarily just into the end of this session, but qualifying as well. Alexander Sims, who's really done the lion's share of the work in this session, hasn't he? Comes up to the line. Let's see what he can do. Breaks the beam and is still 23rd fastest. Might be that they're on old rubber. It might be that they're still worrying about setup. And I'm not talking about the team per se, but everybody in the entry. But certainly, trying to find an improvement is very, very difficult right now. There's the Porsche we're getting concerned about.
I mean, I think overall everybody's run the tyres they ran this morning, and they're saving their new tyres for qualification, and then certainly one set, hopefully hungover, leftover, shouldn't say hungover, that was last night, for one of the 2 sprint races on board in the Porsche.
Watching how Sven Muller drives the car, watching how the car responds, is there anything in this that would make you think, I can understand why it's not quick?
I mean, it looks as if it's quite a comfortable car to drive. It doesn't look as if he's on the edge. He's not ragging the car. So again, maybe the team are just going through a work program. So the Rutronic team, they know the car inside out. Let's wait and see where that car ends up after qualification this afternoon.
Climbs the hill. We did have an improvement on the last lap from Hugo Cook's Audi, number 26. And there, back into the session with Giacomo Altway at the wheel, is number 69 Ferrari. That has improved in the sectors on its previous lap.
That was a big commitment coming through the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Not sure I didn't hear the bodywork clatter over those curbs. So again, very wide on the exit of Graham Hill Bend, so I'm sure there'll be notification to that very shortly.
Rather forlorn-looking bollard as well had been knocked over, you saw on the outside of the curbing at Graham Hill Bend. But the Altway and Vermeulen Ferrari, Altway replacing, if you like, Albert Costa as the teammate to Thierry Vermeulen for this year. And it should be a competitive car, that. And a cancellation of the current lap time of this car. Yes, so you are absolutely right. Wide at Graham Hill Bend.
Yep.
Forget it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no point pushing on other than there's only 1:18, so he wants to get back across start-finish line to go one more flying lap.
The other car that's had a lap cancelled on this current lap as well is the Porsche. So that's one that's perhaps got a bit more pace than we're seeing, but if lap times are being taken off it, it's never going to improve, is it?
So Altway will have one more lap. We've got a minute.
No, he's
coming in the pit lane, so
yeah, that's a session done.
That's pretty much over. And yeah, I mean, it's been a session really about information gathering for the team of work in preparation to the 2 one-hour sprints on Sunday afternoon. And I mean, we'd love to see greens and purples popping up everywhere, every lap. But there are points when teams have to go through this sort of metronomic process of developing the car as a race car, not as a single fast lap car.
Well, that's the one that is the fastest. Mauro Engel and Lucas Auer. Whoops, way off the road. 88, that's the Haase Ferrari Audi. And Christopher Haase at the wheel of it. And it has just about stopped before anything solid. But Christopher Haase cannoning off the road like that, you don't see very often.
Well, almost a mirror of what happened to Valentino Rossi earlier in session 1. Oh, he got an oversteer. He had to correct the car, then just stepped sideways.
Check red flag.
So that was an unexpected, it was a sudden rear-end breakaway. He then put the lock on, and you get an overcorrection. The car just bits of bodywork coming off as well. those little carbon fiber, and he's still carrying a lot of speed as he goes off the gravel into the grass. Just about, wow, rips part of the rear bodywork. The diffuser should be okay. I think the rear wing was on hit, but that was a scary moment for Christopher Haase, yes.
And it looks even more scary in super slow-mo. That camera worth its weight in gold.
I mean, that's got to be something going to be posted on Instagram before soon.
Absolutely. He's not finished yet. He's not stopped yet. He's still going. Now he's got a little bit of traction on that gravelly part of the escape road. And finally, look, stops. Whew, right, code brown for Christopher Haase, but he's in the pit lane.
And the checkered flag's out.
It is indeed, yes. And if you can hear a thumping, it's Christopher Haase's heart rate, but it's heading back to normal, isn't it? That was quite a wild ride.
I tell you what, that slow-mo camera is just, I mean, what you see when you see it slowed down, that's what we see when it's in real time. Wow.
And the timing screen, rather casually, says car 88 out and back at turn 7. Well, yes, but it was quite a wild old ride. So you can see the checkered flag is being waved. The majority of cars actually are already in the pits. Very few takers on the circuit. So work done. And now the attention turns to the qualifying sessions, plural, of which there are 2 of 10 minutes. And we'll be on air at 4 o'clock with the first of those, with 10 past 4 being Q1, which sorts out the grid for the first race. And then there's a 10-minute break. And then there's Q2, which is the second race grid. Now, as the cars head to the pit lane, Maro Engel and Lucas Auer are the fastest. And Antonio Rankin has tracked them down in the pit lane.
Well, congratulations, guys. This bodes well for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, we see. I mean, then in the qualifying it counts, but I think we have a good setup. Maro, myself, the team, good prepared, and let's see what happens in qualifying.
Of course, it's a very short lap here. Just how important is quali?
Very important. It's tough to overtake. I mean, it's easy to make a mistake, so I expect there will happen something in the race, but quali is so important and a tough track.
Now, Maro, you've won here before, of course. What are you going to do in quali to make sure that you have the best chance of following through?
Yeah, well, as you said, you know, qualifying here is super important. It's very, very hard to overtake in a normal race situation. So, yeah, so far, you know, the car's been handling well, but we've seen it's tricky track conditions, and I think there might be some rain later on. So let's see. But you know, we're focused on trying to get the best possible starting position and hopefully try and get pole.
If there is rain, how much will your approach change?
The aim stays the same, but obviously the driving differs a little bit. But you know, the team's very experienced, so you know, hopefully they'll give us a good car for both Q1 and Q2, and we'll try and do the best job possible.
Of course. Well, it's a great start. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
All smiles, Maro Engel and Lucas Auer. On the other side of the garage, Reese Magnus Gustafsson's car that entered the session 21st. And super slow-mo with the fangs at the front of the car. There up to Sterling, as you can see, is the Mercedes. You can also see how the car, as it comes past the grass, makes the grass blow. But the Mercedes, on that evidence, the car to beat, and indeed Mercedes generally now topping both of the practice sessions we've had thus far. Other teams with a bit of work to do, I think, to narrow that margin.
Just that slow-mo again, catching how the suspension on the Mercedes is off. You get the sense that that's actually quite a soft setup just to get the mechanical grip out of the car. I haven't seen many other cars, certainly other Mercedes, catching the sparks just on the entry into Sterling's, as we're seeing on the current quickest car.
Lucas Auer, Maro Engel top pre-qualifying from Tom Gamble and Benjamin Goethe, then Tom Fleming and Alicia Dono. Maxi Goetz, Jules Gounon fourth from Mathieu Drudy and Nicolas Bart, then Ben Green and Constant Appeline, top 10 rounded out by Van Thor and Weerts, Altwee Vermeulen, Rossi Martin and Eastwood and Jolic. With the best of the silvers being Tom Fleming and Alicia Dono, the best of the golds being Eastwood and Jolic, and of course the best of the Pro Cup cars being Maro Engel and Lucas Auer. 25 cars we have in total, and looking forward then to qualifying, which, as you just heard drivers saying, is hugely important around here. Brands Hatch is not the widest of circuits. These cars are big beasts, and it's very, very important indeed to be up at the pointy end of the grid. Last year's winning Race 2 Audi from 7th really bucked the trend, but everybody knows they've got to deliver. And when you take an out lap out of your 10 minutes and then your start-up lap, you're not left with a huge amount of time. So the pressure is on for qualifying.
Yeah, but that makes it all the better as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I agree.
Give drivers an hour, they'll take an hour. Give them a minute, they've got to get the job done.
Let's have a look at the highlights then of pre-qualifying, with the cars pouring out on track. And the Ferrari number 69 of Thierry Vermeulen and Giacomo Altwee looking rapid early on. Porsche struggling though. Sven Müller and Patrick Niederhauser not yet being able to unlock the performance of the 911. Alessio Dono is becoming very impressive around here, and that car up at the pointy end of the times, whereas Charles Weertz had a wild old ride at Paddock Hill Bend. Jules Gounon and Maxi Goetz top the times in free practice, but only fourth at the end of pre-qualifying. Alessio Dono and Tom Fleming's Ferrari taking third behind the McLaren of Tom Gamble and Benjamin Goethe. But the fastest car, another Mercedes, Mauro Engel and Lucas Ahr. We'll see you at 4 o'clock when qualifying for the first Sprint Cup round gets underway.